Yo, what is up, guys? Joker here, bringing you a video on Albion Online. At this point, I do have 100 hours in the game, well, 111, so over 100 hours by a decent bit. And I wanted to go ahead and give my opinions about the game, especially with the mobile expansion coming out, of kind of if you should try out Albion Online, what you may like about it, what you may not like about it, see how you feel, give you that impression, right? So I'm going to do this in two parts. I am going to go ahead and as you can probably see if you ever saw my last video, my opinions are going to be differing quite a bit since I experienced a large amount more of the content. So, and I've interacted with a lot more of it. So let's go ahead and jump into it. It's going to be kind of a two-part thing. It's going to be where I name like a couple of the negative things, and then later on I'm going to jump into positives because hey, end on that high note, right? Just because of the fact that there is also, I mean, maybe I should start with the positives because there is less. I think I actually am going to do that. I'm going to start with the positives just because there is less positives, unfortunately. But let's get started. So, jumping into it, in case you don't know, Albion Online is a full open world sandbox MMORPG game that with full loot, PvP being the selling point essentially, right? Well, that's at least what it says. It's what it's titled as. Is the full loot PvP is kind of like the main focus of the game. And that's what either attracts players or pushes players away. Let's go ahead and address that from the start. You do not have to interact with the full loop PvP at all. You literally don't. If you don't want to, you don't have to interact with that aspect of the game at all. Um, what I mean by that is that the full loop PvP is only going to be in red zones and black zones, which I'm going to explain both of those in my negatives. But yeah, uh, you don't have to interact with that at all. You can gather resources from 1 to 5 here, and then in the corrupted dungeons, you can find gear that is 6-1 or 7-1 or plus in the yellow zone's corrupted dungeons, which I have done. I found the higher gear, and in the yellow dungeons, you don't actually lose gear. Yellow zones are not full loot PvP, so they're only light PvP, so you don't even have to worry about dying really. It really doesn't matter if you die. So let's break it down into a couple of the things. So, as you can see, the zones start blue, yellow, red, black. Let's stay on that tangent of the PvP, full loop PvP first, and then go into the next thing. So, blue, yellow zones, which are zones 1 through 5, essentially you do not have, I'm sorry, 1 through 4, you do not have to go ahead and interact. No, yeah, it is 1 through 5. What am I saying? 1 through 5, and you don't have to interact with PvP at all. There are going to be some people fighting here. That's essentially for the factions. As a newer player, that won't really matter to you. And then red zones are going to be the start, which is usually like that 5, 6 plus, and 5 to 7, and then 8 is only going to be in the black zones over here, which I'm going to explain that entirely in the negatives because the black zone is unbalanced in my opinion. But let's stay on track. So you can go the entire game just in the blue and yellow zone. There are boats if you want to move around the cities. You actually don't have to walk through any of the red zones whatsoever. As you can see, there are plenty of ways to get around. It may be longer, but there's plenty of ways to actually get around without actually going into the red zone. So if you don't want to be in the red zone, you don't have to. You don't have to be in. You don't have to be a part of the full loop PvP system. As well as the fact that with that, let's go into the next thing, corrupted dungeons, which is going to be your introduction to PvP. I really like corrupted dungeons just because of the fact of how they work. It's essentially a dungeon that is an introduction to PvP, as well as it does have a boosted modifier on. It does have a boosted modifier on loot. So it actually has a higher loot bonus than some of the red and black dungeons I've done in the same zones. If I do a corrupted dungeon in a tier 5 yellow zone, I sometimes have a better loot modifier than if I was in a a tier 5 red zone. I have a better loot modifier than if I was in a tier 6 or sometimes even tier 7 red or black zone, which seems kind of stupid, but it's doable. And you don't have to worry about it because there's not the full loot PvP. Most people don't actually even engage in the invasion mechanic of corrupted dungeons in yellow zones because it's not really that rewarding. It's kind of a waste of time. So, but I do like corrupted dungeons in general. And then on top of that, let's go ahead and go into the classless system. I do really like that. The classless system is going to be the next thing that I say that I really like. The ability to go ahead and swap around gear, and that's where you get your abilities as well as your skills. I'm sorry, your skills as well as kind of your class. You can wear robes and be a mage. You can wear full armor and be a mage. And the main things that are going to differ are going to be like the amount of health you get and the type of resistances you have, right? So like you're going to be tankier if you're decked out in all plate armor, obviously, but you are going to be a little bit slower, I believe, and stuff like that. So classless system is pretty cool where you can mix and match whatever type of gear you want to use whatever type of class you want, as well as the massive skill tree where it essentially branches and has at least several hundred different weapons, which is cool, but is also overwhelming. That is way too overwhelming just because it is too vast of a tree and it does leave too much to the imagination, right? Where it's going to be harder to figure out what you want to use when there's 400 plus weapons. You're not going to test out every weapon and say, oh, I want to use this. So it is good, it is bad, but the fact that there is like 400 weapons that you look through and you're like, so it's too much variety. But yeah, the classless system, the corrupted dungeon system, I really like, as well as the economy system, where it is that circle where all the gear in Albion Online is player crafted. What I mean by that is if you go in a dungeon and you loot a chest, the items you receive are going to be items crafted from another player. So it integrates crafters being a necessity, gatherers being a necessity, and the those two are pretty much going to fuel the PvPers, which when you die in PvP, not only do you lose all your loot, a portion of your loot can be trash, which would completely destroy it. So that keeps it so there's not an overflow of items. Items get into the economy when people go to this city called Carolia and they sell items to the black market. An item sold in the black market is going to go into the loot pool when someone opens the chest. And that is also another good moneymaker is if it's trying to roll an item and it doesn't have it on the black market's going to buy that item from that much more from a player. So it's a really cool system that it's essentially fueling its own drops, right? It's a completely 100% player driven economy. Now, those are going to be the plus sides, right? If we jump into the negative now, which is going to be sadly the majority of it, is that let's go into the negatives. So, as I was saying, where do we want to start? Let's start with the zones like we did with the positives. So, red zones are going to be a negative, and black zones are going to be a negative, not because that's where you access full loot PvP, but because that's where you are gated from accessing full loot PvP. What I mean by that is if you're flagged for combat in a red zone, everyone and their mother will jump on you, so you will not be able to experience PvP. You can go into red zone corrupted dungeons and do PvP, but you have the option there of having a clear build which has terrible PvP, or you have a PvP build which has terrible dungeon clear. There's not very many builds that actually do both well, let alone both at all. Most builds do one or the other. which is kind of stupid. That goes back to there being too much variety. They could literally shrink it down and give builds more capability of doing multiple types of content compared to, okay, we have this many different builds, but half of these are only PvP oriented and the other half are PvE oriented. So that's my take on that. As well as, yeah, that's my take on that. So that's my problem with the red zones. And then if you go into the black zones, you're going to experience something entirely different. You're going to experience it dominated by an alliance called Arc. There's going to be, I think there's several dozen guilds in Arc, but the main problem is there's about 1,700 people registered in Arc, and I'm sorry, 17,000 people registered in Arc, and the active player base for Albion is only 8,000 players. So a large majority of the player base is in this Arc dominated alliance where essentially anyone else going into the black zone is completely destroyed. You walk into the black zone, it doesn't matter if you have gear or not, you're going to die. And I don't know, that's just stupid to me to have, as well as I'm pretty sure there's an agreement around certain guilds besides the ones in the direct alliance that they just won't mess with each other. So if you're the other portion of the players that's not in one of those guilds and you walk into a black zone, you die, which is stupid. Uh, as well, so red zones kind of suck because you can't really PvP. The corrupted dungeons in red zones are eh. Black zones suck because they are completely dominated, where they're completely camped out by the portals from the Arc Alliance and other guilds. So you can't really go through the black zones if you are a solo player at all. 75% of the time, you will just die before you get any kind of progress done. Uh, and then what do I want to jump into next? Besides the zones, I think the next thing that I'd want to point out as a negative is going to be the gathering. The gathering is an okay system, but the nodes are way too far spread out and they're way too finite of a resource to really be intricate, as well as the fact that the game is heavily botted right now. Um, and it is kind of obvious just because majority of the players that are gathering in some of the zones, you can tell they're bots because of the fact that they'll run in the same pattern, hitting specific nodes as they make their way around the map. Now, you can say, oh, it's a person, he's just running around in a circle because he knows the timer for the nodes to respawn. No, because if you go ahead and you are able to deplete the resource before them, they'll still stand there like they're clicking on it for a couple of seconds before they move to the next thing. It takes them a second to realize, hey, that resource isn't there anymore, which kind of poor coding for a bot, if you ask me, but whatever. So the fact that the red and black zones, you can't really go to gather higher level resources because if you flag for PvP in red zones, you're going to die. So I mean, you could gather there, but if you go to gather resources in black zone, the highest levels, you will die because it's completely dominated by one alliance. And then with the number of bots running around in the other zones, you don't really have a chance of gathering the resources. So your main viability is of making any kind of silver is running the dungeons, which I mean, you can do so much of that before you get burnt out. A part of that is going to be the premium. So we went over the zones, we went over bots. Let's jump into premium. Premium is a quote unquote optional feature, which is a necessity. You receive more fame, which is essentially your leveling system, as well as you get other more resources when you have fame. And you just get a whole bunch of extra benefits if you have premium. So it's not really a requirement, but it is a requirement if you want to make any kind of progress in the game. Just because you get double the fame, you get a bunch of extra resources, you get double the learning points for having premium active. So you get a double of pretty much everything if you have premium. So it's not really a requirement, but it's literally a requirement, which I think is kind of stupid. Now, if you look here and you see, oh, you can buy premium for gold or silver. Yeah, but for this amount of silver, it is going to be hard since a lot of the money making is gated behind red and black dungeons or red and black corrupted dungeons, which you're going to be dominated by arc. I literally jumped out of a dungeon in a black zone and there was 10 people just standing where the dungeon was waiting for me to clear the dungeon. So, yeah, I'm not even gonna fucking get into that. As well as jumping into the next negative thing, apart from the premium being a non-required requirement, is the fact that you can buy gold, and gold allows you to buy fame. So you literally can pay to win. You don't have to play the game to level up your abilities. You don't have to play the game to get silver. You literally don't have to play the game to experience portions of the game, which is stupid in my opinion. Because with gold, you can buy the silver and then you can buy the tomes, which will give you the fame. So you don't need to play to level up. And that's the stupidest thing an RPG can ever do is say, hey, you're not actually going to have to play our game to experience benefits of our game. Oh, this weapon's locked behind this level, but if you go ahead and you put $50 into the game, instead of spending 120 hours maxing out a thing, you can go ahead and max it out for free. Well, I mean, for money, right? So that's the stupidest thing. Now, the reason why I say it's stupid is because you do get benefits for essentially having higher fame, right? Not only does it unlock the highest tier of gear, you gain a pretty much item power. So you gain strength. So you buy power. That is literally the definition of pay to win, is where you pay to have an advantage in the game. And it's not like, oh, I can only buy so much gold. Oh, I can only buy so many tomes. No, that's not gated behind anything. And the fact that that is a feature and that the combat and the fame system is such an integral part is kind of conflicting and kind of stupid too. So we went over a couple of positives, we went over a couple of negatives. There is more negatives that I'd like to get into, but the video is already super long, so I'm gonna go ahead and actually end it here. Um, I mean, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, I guess, me shit talking Albion. I'm gonna go ahead and yeah, definitely leave your opinion. Oh, fourth thing is the servers are really bad most of the time. I don't know if it's just me, but I was looking through the chat and apparently it was everyone. So the servers can get really bad because it is one massive server. So they don't think that that's a bad idea with people spamming AoEs and fucking shining abilities, right? But whatever. And sometimes it'll get so bad where your character and the mobs will rubber band. You'll be in a fight and you'll lose all your FPS. It's terrible. But yeah, uh, if you enjoyed the video, I hope you like, comment, and subscribe. Ending thoughts on the video is going to be: should you play Albion Online in 2021? I'm going to go ahead and say maybe if you enjoy gathering. And a little, I mean, you can play it for probably a good 30, 40 hours before you burn out and want to do some of the other stuff. Or hey, if you're into just the natural gathering, a little bit more than that. But I'd give it a solid like 6 out of 10. I'd say it's a no. I mean, I play it because I really don't have anything else to play. I rotate games right now. So I'm rotating a couple games waiting for the next PoE season. But yeah, the fact that it's so unbalanced, the combat system, it is dominated in the end game by one alliance, and the fact that you can pay to win are all going to be main things that are a major turnoff for the game. I know I've said it a couple of times, and I'm trying to end the video here. So let's go ahead, yeah, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave any thoughts on my opinion down in the comments, since I know everyone on the internet has opinions. Yeah, and tell me how you feel about the game. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end here. And until next time, take care.